Prepare to experience the strongest radio allowable by law. Secrets will be revealed. Myths dispelled. From the studio gym where excuses never apply, it's Superhuman Radio with your host, Carl Lenore.
Lyme disease is a horrible condition. Oh, today is July 23rd, 2020. People who are plagued by Lyme disease generally are plagued for the rest of their lives, and it doesn't get better. It often gets worse. And they lose faith that they can even get better. My guest today is considered the most prominent of all Lyme disease physicians out there. And he is Dr. Richard Horowitz. Before we undergo and get started here, I just want to mention that this show is brought to you by Legendary Foods. Freudian slip there. EatLegendary.com is the website to go to. The code is SHR. You'll get 10% off everything there at the website. Show them some love. They make the show possible. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Horowitz. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Carl?
Fantastic. And we had you on the show recently because you did a couple really good studies about using glutathione and treating the pneumonia aspect of COVID-19, which was summarily taken down off of YouTube as soon as I put them up there, interestingly enough. I was like, what's the harm? People, doctors can infuse glutathione. What's the big deal? But obviously, the draconian police saw that information is dangerous. If you teach people and they become smarter, they're a danger to themselves. But anyway, but more people wanted to have you back on the show because of your wheelhouse, the place that you spent your career, which is treating Lyme disease. When did this start for you, Lyme disease? You're an MD. You didn't specialize in Lyme disease when you got out of medical school. How did you evolve into this category?
No, in fact, the story is kind of funny because I was finishing up my internal medicine training at Mount Sinai in New York. I was doing a rotation in the city hospital systems. And I remember my third year of the internal medicine residency, we were invited to a lecture from Stony Brook from a professor about Lyme disease. And I was sitting in the audience with my friend, Howard, and Howie and I were, listening to this. And I turned to him and I went, oh yeah, I'll probably never see any of this in my lifetime. And of course, I then was offered a job to come upstate to the Poughkeepsie area. Vassar Brothers Hospital invited me up there so I could work with them. I was assistant director of medicine at the hospital for a while. I worked in their emergency room, opened up a clinic, which they helped me to set up. And when I moved to Dutchess County, New York, which is about 2 hours north of New York City, I didn't realize I was moving into the largest Lyme endemic area in the United States. So the whole thing really just got started by accident because I moved into a very high Lyme endemic area. I was taught in medical school to always get to the source of the problem. Don't just treat symptoms. Put yourself in people's shoes and do for them what you would want done. So I went on a medical detective journey, which has now taken me past 30 years to look for answers for this very debilitating disease.
And it's got to be very frustrating for you because there's a lot of people out there who are very negative and very cynical, and they think, oh, sure, you treat a disease there's no cure for, so you're getting wealthy. You'd much rather have a disease that you could cure and send people home, right?
Yes. Well, first of all, we're not really even taking patients in my practice anymore just because we're on overload. And the money aspect has absolutely nothing to do with it. I know what rumors are out there in general, but that's all the politicizing of medicine. That has nothing to do with the real world. What I personally do, I can't speak for other doctors, comes from a sense of duty and responsibility for the public to help people who are sick and nothing more. So, regarding this disease and cures, as you said, and, the treatments that are out there, the good news and the reason I'm happy to be on your show today is because in the last 5 to 7 years, we've really made some tremendous breakthroughs regarding new treatments for treating chronic Lyme disease. We still have a ways to go with some of the co-infections like Babesia, which is a parasitic infection that gets into a lot of the Lyme patients, and Bartonella, which is a bacterial co-infection that seems to infect at least 50% of my patients. We still have a ways to go. But as an example, my wife, who was sick with Lyme for about 30 years, is now going on about 3 years, symptom-free, after doing 2 months of an antibiotic protocol. And I shared this protocol, or at least a good part of it, in my last book, How Can I Get Better? So not only am I now looking to make money from this, every secret I have that helps the public, I stick in a book and I tell people how to do it. Just because I'm only one person and there's an epidemic worldwide going on with Lyme.
Now, one of the early tasks you took on was standardized testing, because if you can't truly diagnose, Lyme disease and diseases like fibromyalgia, they are generally diagnosed based on symptoms. And it's hard because there's a lot of diseases that overlap symptoms. And so it's hard to precisely know, do I have someone who is treatable for Lyme disease, or is this just a group of symptoms that mimic those who have Lyme disease? You spent a lot of time actually working on testing. In fact, you came up with the Horowitz Multiple Systemic Infectious Disease Syndrome Questionnaire that's designed to tease out people who truly have Lyme disease and people who have other chronic diseases, when all put together, look like Lyme disease, right?
That's correct. So we published this study. It took us about 3 years to do it. And I worked with 2 researchers, PhD researchers from the University of New Paltz, which is kind of in our backyard here, Dr. Mariella Cetera and Dr. Phyllis Freeman. And the study was done with 1,600 people. We had healthy people, and then we had people who had had Lyme disease in the past or had active symptoms. And we were able to validate a symptom questionnaire statistically, so that, in fact, it's the only statistically validated symptom questionnaire that's out there for diagnosing Lyme. And it's needed because, for example, as you said, with chronic fatigue syndrome, myalgic encephalomyelitis or fibromyalgia, the symptoms can look the same. You can get fatigue, you can get joint and muscle pain, you can get nerve pain, headaches, sleep disorders, memory problems, mood disorders. So how do you differentiate Lyme from it? Well, there are some basic facts with Lyme that you don't see in other diseases. So for example, with Lyme, you generally get good and bad days where the symptoms tend to come and go for no good reason. The joint pain, the muscle pain, and the nerve pain, the tingling, numbness, burning, stabbing sensation, that's neuropathy, it migrates around the body. And when I published this study, we did a literature search, and we found out that there are only 7 diseases in medicine that cause migratory pain. And unless you're at the bottom of your medical school class, you generally should be able to differentiate hepatitis from ulcerative colitis, from gonococcal arthritis to acute rheumatic fever. I mean, lupus. I mean, it's pretty easy, honestly, if you know how to do a basic, workup for these diseases. So the migratory aspect is very helpful. When people take antibiotics, they usually say they feel better or worse, which is a Herxheimer reaction. It's a cytokine storm, very similar, by the way, to what you get with COVID-19. So there are some very specific symptoms of Lyme. And if you score over 63 on the questionnaire, it's more than 2 standard deviations, meaning there's a very high likelihood you've been exposed to Lyme.
Okay, so let's get to the optimistic part of the interview. What is new and promising in Lyme disease treatment? Because we actually have people in the audience that have questions who have Lyme disease as well. So let's start with that.
So about 5 to 7 years ago, some of the university-based researchers like Dr. Ying Zhang, who was working at Johns Hopkins, he just left, but he was there for many years, Dr. Eva Shapi from the University of New Haven, Stanford researchers, they started looking at 2 different forms of Lyme disease called biofilm forms and persister forms. Now, the light bulb went off in my head when I started seeing the literature on persister forms of Lyme, because it's different to say that we know a bacteria persists in the body. For those of us who've been following the literature and treating Lyme patients, we know it persists. That's just a medical political issue that's happening out there, but the literature clearly supports it, as do the clinical studies we've done. But persister forms means it persists like tuberculosis or leprosy. Now, when I was in residency, it was during the HIV/AIDS epidemic. And I was using tuberculosis drugs because we were seeing TB reactivate, or MAI, Mycobacterium avium intracellulare. So I had a lot of experience using INH and rifampin and pyrazinamide and some of these drugs. I always wanted to use them for Lyme disease, but I never had a good enough reason until these articles got published by these researchers. So I went and I looked up these drugs that they use for other persister bacteria, specifically tuberculosis and leprosy. And I came across a drug which is called Dapsone. Now, Dapsone has been around for probably 50 to 70 years. It's been used for acne. It's been used for autoimmune disease. They use it for a whole broad range of diseases. And when I looked up the properties of Dapsone, what astonished me is, number one, it's anti-inflammatory, which is great because
always good.
Symptoms for Lyme are from inflammation. It would hit the persistent forms. They use rifampin and Dapsone for a year to treat leprosy, just a 2-drug combo. It also has anti-malarial effects. And most of my patients are exposed to Babesia, this tick-borne parasite. So that would be great because that's a bonus. So we decided to look at Dapsone and its qualities in treating Lyme. And I knew rifampin and Dapsone was used for treating leprosy. So all I did was add doxycycline to the mix, doxycycline, rifampin, and Dapsone. We would give them plaquenil hydroxychloroquine, one of the drugs that's been discussed now for COVID. The advantage of the drug is it hits the cystic forms, otherwise called round body forms of Lyme. It alkalizes the intracellular compartment to make doxy and rifampin more effective. And lo and behold, when we started giving this regimen to people, we started noticing that some of the people that failed traditional regimens were getting better. So we played with this approach, and I published 2 articles in the last several years. These 2 articles encompass 300 patients. They were retrospective. We still need to do a prospective study. And we showed that Dapsone combination therapy was good for the 8 major symptoms of Lyme, like fatigue, headaches, brain fog, memory problems, joint pain, muscle pain, nerve pain, Babesia symptoms like night sweats, day sweats, chills. So it was a very useful drug. And one of my patients by accident a couple of years ago took a double dose of it for a month, came in and felt horrible. And I asked him what he was on. He said, "Oh, I was taking it twice a day." I said, no, that's too much. I said, "Stop the drug and come back in a month." He came back in a month. This kid was in his 20s and sick for 7 years. He'd only been on antibiotics for 4 months. He came back and said, "Doc, I feel fabulous." I said, "What?" He said, "Oh my God, I feel great." I said, "All right, don't take anything else." Remember, sick for 7 years, 4 months of drugs. We followed him over the year. He never relapsed. So I turned to my wife, who'd been sick our entire marriage, and I said, "Hey, honey, would you like to be a guinea pig? I have this kid who accidentally took a double dose. It looked like it knocked it out. Would you be willing to do it?" She did. And my wife is now going almost 3 years. Now, the advantage of this protocol is it's very short. It is high dose. It has side effects, and we can discuss that in a minute. But it is very, very encouraging that people that have failed other treatments, including long-term IV treatments, multiple oral drugs, herbal therapies, I have a lot of people getting better on Dapsone combination therapy.
This is exciting. You know, my brain starts connecting dots. We're starting to learn more and more about antibiotics and their pleiotropic effects. We always thought that all they do is they just kill bacteria, pathogens. That's what they do. What we learned about zithromycin in this COVID virus situation is that the preponderance of senescent cells is what causes the deadly effects of COVID versus just symptoms and you get better. And when you tell doctors to prescribe zithromycin for COVID, they go, no, it's not affected by antibiotics. But what they fail to realize is that zithromycin was approved by the FDA as an anti-aging drug, that a 5-day standard Z-Pack regimen will vanquish 97% of the senescent cells in your body. And this lines up nicely with people who take rapamycin for organ rejection after they've had kidney transplants. There was a guy on the ship, that first ship, his wife got sick. He didn't get sick. He takes rapamycin every single day because he's got an organ transplant. And they tested him and they said, "Yeah, you have the virus, but it seems to be going away." So the reason this is the long way around the horn is we're starting to understand. We've always said that antibiotics are bad because of what they do to the microbiome. But when we talk about immunity and we talk about the immune system, we're talking about the gut. When we talk about inflammation, we're talking about the army of the immune system. So we're starting to realize that maybe antibiotics aren't the villains we think they are, that there are good applications for them where they can actually do like a reset. I've always wondered why I can't take a high regimen of antibiotics, like the way we kill our lawn and reseed. Why can't I just kill all the bad bugs and the good bugs and everything and reseed with just good bugs? And because we don't know what the good bugs are at this point in time. But it's fascinating to me because what we're learning is, like you're saying, look, it's an antiviral, it's this, it's that. It's amazing. I think we're going to see a renaissance of the application of antibiotics for a variety of different diseases that have nothing to do with microbial pathogen infestation at all. What do you think about that? Am I too far off?
Well, I mean, I think some of it's possible, but let me just comment just on a few things. So number one, for the microbiome, you're absolutely right. You have to be careful with the microbiome with any antibiotics. Even a 7-day course for an upper respiratory infection can wipe out the good bacteria in your colon for a year. And most of the doctors do not give probiotics when they give even short courses. Now, that being said, Dapsone does not seem to have an effect on the microbiome. And the standard protocol that we use when we do combination therapy for Dapsone is we usually use at least 3 different probiotics of very high strength. So for example, one of them is Saccharomyces boulardii. It's a type of a yeast. Saccharomyces boulardii has been shown to stop C. diff diarrhea. We get very few cases of C. diff over the years doing it when people take it properly. We use a probiotic called Thyroid from Master Supplements. It's been vetted by the FDA. It has a coat around it, a sodium alginate coat, that 95% of the 40 to 60 billion of these 5 strains that have been shown to be in octogenarians, the people who live the longest on the planet, are in this particular probiotic. We use Thyroid 1 twice a day, Saccharomyces 1 twice a day, and then other probiotics, whether it's Orthobiotic, Ultraflora, Probiome, there's a bunch of them we use. But saying that, we make sure that we are very careful with the microbiome. And when people come off the protocol, we leave them on these probiotics, sometimes with prebiotics to give them food, to make sure that we have replaced the microbiome, because it is important. Now, you mentioned something about the good bacteria. There was an article that just came out a couple of days ago about this bacteria called Prevotella copri that they now know with allergies. For these kids that get peanut allergies and problems, if you don't have enough of this bacteria, you basically are going to do worse from allergic standpoints. And they know also that certain Clostridium species and other species, if you have them, may put you at higher risk for MS. They're showing the same problems with Parkinson's disease, with Alzheimer's, that the microbiome does play an important role. But I mean, we do have a long way to go until we figure out exactly which strains and how this is going to work. I mean, we're not there yet, but we do protect the microbiome. And one of the things that we do with this protocol is we use biofilm agents. So the second most exciting thing that happened with Dapsone combination therapy, we didn't know until about 7-8 years ago that Lyme disease, Borrelia burgdorferi, existed under biofilms. We normally learned as doctors that biofilm infections would be like Salmonella, C. diff, Candida, endocarditis. These are well-known biofilm infections. Nobody ever said that the reason we weren't getting rid of Lyme disease was because the bugs were hiding under biofilms, and no matter what herbs or antibiotics you gave them, they weren't able to penetrate through the biofilms. And then from the antibiotic standpoint of finding the bugs, well, if they're being protected by the biofilms, you're not going to be able to see it. So there are many reasons that the biofilms are important, and we use 3 biofilm agents when we're doing Dapsone combination therapy. We're using ones like serapeptase. It's like Baluch. We're using stevia compound from Nutrimetics. We're using oregano oil, biocidin. There are many different ones that have come out in the last couple of years that are effective in opening up the biofilms. We don't really know what the exact, most perfect combo is. So I give 3 of them just to play it safe. But it definitely, you will see people have Herxheimer reactions and feel worse.
Right.
Biofilm agents, it will say, oh my God, I'm feeling much worse. And it's because you're opening up the biofilms and your immune system has a chance to get to the bugs.
Right. The biofilm is there specifically to sequester things and lock them up. It's kind of like our virus vault. And when you start to disrupt that, in fact, there was a study I talked about probably 7 or 8 years ago that shows that cirrhosis of the liver from alcohol consumption is a result not from the liver's inability, the hepatic stress from filtering alcohol, but the disruption of the biofilm in the gut that then releases really horrible things that get caught in the liver and cause cirrhosis. I mean, it was shown in research. So yeah, the biofilm is important, except when it becomes disrupted, which I think we have a comment here and a question. Mark DeCorso says, after a diagnosis of Lyme disease, I was put on doxycycline for 4 weeks. I felt sick. A few months later, I did another round of doxy for 6 weeks and got 80% better. Was pretty happy with that. Slowly started coming back. By chance, I had sinus surgery. They gave me Ceftin, C-E-F-T-I-N. Woke up 3 days later, was 100% symptom free. Very strange. And then he goes on to make a comment that says basically, in regards to the above, have you seen variability in what works for certain people? I don't want to be biased at, he's an N equals 1. And in fact, didn't you publish a study specifically pointing out with precision medicine that everybody responds differently to these therapeutic approaches, right?
That's correct. So the thing to understand about this bacteria, Borrelia burgdorferi, is it has cell wall forms. Cell wall forms will respond to ceftin, cefuroximactitol, or ivrocephin, or omnicef, which are all cephalosporins or penicillins. So if you have an actively growing bacteria, ceftin, amoxicillin, ivrocephin, it will work for that particular type of bacteria. Now, not that doxycycline doesn't work for it, but doxycycline primarily is for the bacteria that go into the intracellular compartment. Ceftin will not go into the intracellular compartment. So when I create regimens for people, and this is all, by the way, in the back of my book in the addendum, I have all of the protocols of how I put them together for people. So for example, 15 years ago, I might have used ceftin, cefuroximactitol for the cell wall forms, Plaquenil with grapefruit seed extract for the cystic or round body forms, and azithromycin, Zithromax for the intracellular forms, with some nystatin so they don't get yeast infections. And that was what we were doing 15 years ago. But then we found out in the last couple of years that we've got these two other forms. We have biofilm forms and we have persister forms. So if you get diagnosed early and you take an antibiotic, you can be cured from Lyme. They know this, right? 80% of the people, up to 90%, will be cured. But there's 10 to 20%, and the research maybe up to 30 or a little higher, will fail 30 days of an antibiotic when they're treated early and go on to chronic Lyme disease, or what I call Lyme MSIDS, which is that you've got multiple systemic infectious disease syndrome. You're not just sick from Lyme, but you have co-infections like Babesia bartonella. You've got heavy metals and environmental toxins that are also driving an inflammatory response. You've got microbiome issues. You've got mitochondrial dysfunction. You have mineral deficiencies. Your autonomic nervous system that controls your blood pressure has been affected. It's like going into a doctor's office with 16 nails in your foot and telling the doctor you got pain in your foot. If you don't find all the nails, you don't get better. So I suspect in this particular case, with the one who just wrote in, he had actively growing forms of Lyme. That's why he responded to ceftin. But if you followed him out over time, if there are persister forms or biofilm forms, he's going to tell you that the symptoms are going to come back again, right? So that's what is the case for most people if they don't get it early on in the process.
If you're listening to the show, not watching us on YouTube or Facebook, the book is called How Can I Get Better? An Action Plan for Treating Resistant Lyme and Chronic Disease. You can get it at Barnes & Noble, I would imagine. I know it's available at Amazon.com, or you can go to the website cangetbetter.com. Dr. Horowitz has been called the most prominent Lyme literate physician around today by the New Yorker, and people literally wait months and months and months and months just to get into the practice. You're not even treating people anymore, right? You kind of have.
I'm down to 2 days a week. No, I still treat patients,
Okay.
but I'm not really accepting new patients anymore because I've been doing this for almost 35 years. My wife would like to have a life with me, and she kind of set the limit and said, "You know something? We got a really great marriage. How about spending more time together?" And so it's a balance now of like the life-work balance, and quite truthfully, it's wonderful because I'm able to publish more studies. I've been able to work for the government, for HHS. I gave them lots of free time. They never paid me for my work for the last few years, but I served on the tick-borne disease working group a couple of years back with the CDC, the FDA, the NIH, and the Department of Defense. We gave Congress recommendations. So this was all just, serving the American public and trying to help all these Americans that are so sick.
So Elisa Profumo is watching, and she says, what about protease enzymes for biofilm? Do protease enzymes do anything good for biofilms?
Yes, they do. In fact, serrapeptase, one of the ones I mentioned, is actually a protease. And there are certainly people that will use like Baluch and other forms of proteases. Some people like EDTA for it also to take the calcium out of the biofilms. So yes, proteases are definitely one of them. But what we really need at this point from the researchers, and this is where we just need more money put into the research, they've really got to compare all the biofilm agents one against the other, and then do combos and do triple combos, because we really don't know if there's one particular regimen that may work the best. And Dr. Ying Zhang from Johns Hopkins has done some of the work on this, and he's even recently done it for co-infections like Bartonella, where things like cinnamon oil, oregano oil, clove oil, these essential oils have a very, very strong effect on the biofilms, but we need a comparison for all the people out there, and then, of course, clinical studies to see how it works.
Do you believe that the deer tick really is domino one in Lyme disease? Or do you think it's transmissible? Or do you think there could be some other things happening to people? We have a fellow who listens to the show often, John Peaks. He said that he had a tick bite from earlier this year. He posted a picture of it up on Facebook. His brother says it's Lyme because of the bullseye in the bite. Don't all ticks leave that bullseye because they bury their head in the skin?
No, so you can get a little red dot around where the tick embeds, but they don't cause bullseye. So the classical bullseye rash, and people need to understand it's very deceptive. The bullseye rash is actually not the most common rash people get from Lyme disease. They get a spreading solid rash that oftentimes is mistaken for cellulitis, for a skin infection or a spider bite. So a lot of times they go into emergency rooms, they have this solid spreading rash, and the doctor says, oh, it's a cellulitis or a spider bite. Here, take a few days, and they don't really knock it out. But the true bullseye, where you have these rings of red and white, it happens with Borrelia burgdorferi, but it also happens with other species. So, for example, tick-borne relapsing fever is a cousin of Lyme disease. The one we are most commonly affected by in the United States is called Borrelia miyamotoi. We discovered it probably maybe 10, 15 years ago. It will rarely cause a bullseye rash. Now, fortunately, the treatments are pretty similar. And then there's a form of Lyme in the Midwest called STARI, S-T-A-R-I, Southern Tick-Associated Rash-like Illness. It also has a bullseye, but we don't know what type of Borrelia it is. They've never been able to identify it. So if you do see a bullseye rash, you have to assume it is a Borrelia species, whether it's tick-borne relapsing fever or Borrelia burgdorferi Lyme, and you should be treating this until you're completely symptom-free. Now, if you're a person with a bullseye rash with no symptoms, like no headaches, no fatigue, no visual problems, memory problems, you're probably going to get over that within 30 days on doxycycline or Ceftin. But if you get a bullseye rash and you have a stiff neck, headache, memory problems, concentration problems, sleep disorders, mood swings, tingling, numbness, burning of your face or extremities, that means that the Lyme got up into your central nervous system. It got into your nerves in your peripheral nervous system. 30 days of antibiotics is not going to cure that. And that's a very important point, especially because a lot of people will stop antibiotics when they have these symptoms, and they really should be going forward with the treatment and using biofilm agents and some of these other new treatments that we're talking about.
Is it a good idea that if you know you've been bit by a tick, regardless of what type of tick it is, to immediately go to your doctor and maybe get on an antibiotic regimen? And what would be the best antibiotic regimen to do as a prophylactic, not knowing whether you have Lyme, you don't have Lyme? Obviously, ticks are dirty, nasty bugs, and they cause some type of symptoms. What do you think?
So there were studies done here in the US and in France that they found up to 36 different organisms in the tick. I mean, they're cesspools for bacteria, for parasites, and for viruses. And one of the viruses, by the way, you have to be very careful and do tick prevention, which, for example, I was out today gardening. I put on lemon eucalyptus oil and then followed it by picaridin, a 5%, although 10 and 20% is better. And these are safer than DEET. So that's on the skin. And you can use picaridin. In most people, it's generally safe for children, although in pregnant women, you'd probably use IR 3535, which is an amino acid-based product. They've studied it in urine, and it's completely safe even in pregnancy. The clothes should be treated with permethrin because that kills the ticks. But the lemon eucalyptus oil or picaridin, 10% I'd probably say is minimum to 20, that will help repel ticks and mosquitoes. So you have less chance of getting West Nile or Triple E and any of these other viral infections that are out there. So it's very important to know what's in the tick. So if you get a tick bite, you should save the tick and you should send it either to your local health department, or there's a company out in Colorado called Ticknology. And Monica, who runs the company, They do a great job. They will check the ticks for tick-borne relapsing fever, for Babesia species, for tularemia, for Rocky Mountain spotted fever, for ehrlichiosis, for anaplasmosis. They're going to check for all these organisms. So if it comes back in a week and nothing is in the tick, then you could stop, let's say, your doxycycline prophylactically, which is probably the one most people are going to use. Now, the advantage of doxy is Lyme disease can kill you, for example, from a Lyme carditis. You can get a 3rd-degree heart block. Thank God it does not happen that often. But 1 to 3% of the people who get a tick bite, who get Ehrlichia or Anaplasma, which can be transmitted by ticks, those people will die from Ehrlichia Anaplasma if they don't get in doxycycline. And it's the same thing with kids, especially children with Rocky Mountain spotted fever. If you don't get in the doxycycline within the first 6 to 7 days, you can die. So it's really important. And the pediatricians used to say, I don't want to give kids doxycycline because it stains the teeth. And the answer to that is, no, it doesn't. The older tetracycline stain the teeth, but not doxycycline. And in fact, you can even use doxy for a short course in pregnancy. How do I know this? I know this because I work with the Tick-Borne Disease Working Group in HHS, and I was co-chair of the other tick-borne diseases and co-infections committee. And one of our members who is on the CDC basically gave us all the studies on this and what happens with Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and that pediatricians who are listening out there, you can give short courses of doxy to kids under 8. You can even give it to pregnant women. It's not going to affect the fetus. So you got to know what's in the tick. I do use doxy most often, but if you're in a place, because doxy's sun sensitive, that you really are at risk for sunburn, you can use Ceftin, the drug that we just talked about earlier. You can use Ceftin for Lyme, but it's not going to cover Ehrlichia. It's not going to cover Anaplasma. It's not going to cover Babesia. It's not going to cover Rocky Mountain spotted fever, tularemia. So you got to be careful. You got to know what's in the tick. And dog ticks contain a completely different set of organisms than the Lone Star tick. The Lone Star tick is now in New York and the Eastern Seaboard. It's containing tularemia, Ehrlichia, Rocky Mountain spotted fever. You can get alpha-gal allergy from a tick bite where the saliva of the tick makes you allergic to red meat. So 6 hours after you have a nice steak at night, you're in the emergency room complaining you can't breathe from an anaphylactic reaction.
Holy mackerel. I've been hearing more and more about the red meat allergies. That's interesting.
That's from the Lone Star tick. So again, dog ticks, wood ticks, Lone Star ticks, deer ticks. You got to know your tick. You got to know what's inside the tick, but send it out. That's really your safest.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was possible. That's valuable information right there. I think about how much time I've spent in the woods hunting and stuff like that, and I've never had an encounter with a tick. But then again, I stay pretty covered up when I go out, and I don't go out in shorts and frolic. It
depends, by the way, on your body heat and carbon dioxide. I sweat a lot, so they love me. And the thing about the regular deer ticks will come from 12 to 15 feet away, but the Lone Star tick, you could be 50 feet away from the edge of your property. They'll come running after you, even from 50 feet away. So people need to know the rule of thumb after you've listened to this podcast is, please, I beg of you, tick prevention with picaridin, with IR3535, lemon eucalyptus, treat your clothes with permethrin. You're going to save your life and your family's life because it's out there, and you don't want to get COVID on top of Lyme. That is a nasty combo.
I want to talk about the CO2 emission from the body, and because I mosquitoes love me, so I would imagine ticks probably love me too. Stay tuned. We're going to be talking more with Dr. Richard Horowitz. We'll be right back. Are you still on the fence about Body Protection Complex BPC Oral from drseeds.com? Listen to Maggie Kuhn, one of the owners of the C-Bus lifting company, Gym, in Columbus, Ohio.
I had been having some nagging tendon issues that weren't injuries, just things that were annoying. I'm 58 years old, so just older tendon kind of issues. For us powerlifters, we really don't stop training when we have just nagging issues. We just kind of keep pushing through. And I started the BPC. What I noticed was I was doing doing some heavy tricep stuff that would have killed me before when I had an elbow problem, and I was able to do those with literally no pain at all.
Go to drseeds.com, DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your bottle of BPC Body Protection Complex today.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I've found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today.
Unlock your potential with the best cognitive enhancement and anti-aging supplements on the market. PureNootropics.net goes the extra mile for the highest quality ingredients, third-party tested to make sure you only receive the best your money can buy. There's no better choice with their money-back guarantee and free shipping. Try their best-selling DHM. Dihydromyricetin prevents hangovers and helps deliver detox after a night of drinking. Get your DHM and other nootropics and longevity supplements from PureNootropics.net. The purest supplements around.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Welcome back. We're going to get right back into the program, but before we do that, I got to talk about a product. This is Quavos. Quavos is a chip made from egg whites, and it's good for you. It's healthy. It's satisfying. It doesn't screw up your stomach. Elisa loves them. Elisa's very particular. A lot of things don't bode well with her gut. And, the only things out there today, I mean, they're all made with these high carb bean chips, or there's the kale chips, which I don't like them at all. It's like eating dried grass. The folks over at Quavos have decided to come up with the first chip that's made from egg whites. It's a great source of protein and fiber in every bag. It's a low carb, minimally added sugar, a tiny, tiny bit, but it's nothing to be concerned about. It's really a snack without trade-offs, and it's tasty and it's enjoyable. It's also gluten-free, grain-free, and it's for people who care about what they are snacking on. If you go to the website Quavos.com, it's Quevos.com, and use the code SHR, you'll get 15% off. Give them a try. I promise you they're fantastic. I like these, the sea salt and cracked pepper. I brought them today to eat after the show. So there you go. Getting back to the discussion, I want to talk more about what we were. Well, look at this. I forgot to remove the image. I did that whole spot without anybody seeing our faces, Dr. Horowitz. Anyway, it's probably better off with my mug. But anyway, So what about that? Am I a bigger target for the tick because mosquitoes seem to drink from my blood the second I get outside the house?
Ticks, just like mosquitoes, are attracted to heat signatures and carbon dioxide. So yes, I mean, I'm not quite sure why you haven't had tick exposures in the woods covered. It's possible you are well covered, but there was a study years ago by the Westchester County Health Department. They covered over completely, and they were dragging for ticks. And it was some ridiculous number, like 18% of the people that did everything they could to not get a tick bite still got bit. So you have to be very careful, especially if you're one of these people that gets bit by mosquitoes.
I want to ask this question first before we move on to some other questions I have about biology. Elisa and I have befriended the deer in our area. Every morning we put buckets of corn out. They literally come right up on the lawn close to the house, and we feed them. And she's asking, should we be more concerned because we're actually attracting deer into the backyard?
You are unfortunately asking the wrong person, because I know the deer by name in my backyard. You're really asking the wrong person. They come in the wintertime off my deck and I'm feeding them apples.
Yeah, we do the same thing. Yeah.
So the answer is yes, but the only reason I don't have the problem on my land is we have a company, New York Tick Control. They've been coming for 15 years. We have 50 bait boxes, 50 around our 4 acres of property. And when the mice go in and they eat the oats, the permethrin that is on the roller kills the ticks. So it's, even though the deer are carriers, believe it is the mice, by the way, that are still the #1 carriers of the ticks, not the deer.
Interesting.
So with these bait boxes and the fact that, and I'm an environmentalist, I'm really careful with chemicals, but they do spray twice a year with something called Ultra Tempo. Now, the only reason I allow it to be used is because it does not get into the groundwater, because I'm living off wells and I'm a real environmentalist with chemicals. It has a 7-day half-life, and they do it twice a year, initially in the spring for the nymphs and then the fall for the adults. We have never seen a tick on our property, despite the deer coming up to my deck all day long. And the turkeys, by the way, I should photo this for you sometimes. Tom the turkey comes up on our deck every morning, asking for bird seed. And we go out there and he's got a whole flock, and we're feeding the turkeys in the morning, and the deer come over and feed. I love animals. I know,
we're the same way.
But understand, I am doing something to my land to prevent this from happening. So Alyssa, if you're not taking care and protecting yourself, it's a slightly different situation, because the ticks obviously can fall off the deer near your property, right? And then you could have a problem.
So let's talk about testing again for a second. I think one of the papers that you had published was about how approaching to diagnosis of Lyme disease misses a large portion of the cases, the way testing was done. We had someone who actually asked a question about testing. Here, Mark DeCorso, again, because he suffers with Lyme disease. Have there been strides in Lyme testing? I've been told it's so unreliable, doctors don't even want to test for it.
So I wish I could tell you there was better news. There is a new testing scheme. Instead of the standard ELISA followed by a Western blot, they now have a 2-tiered EIA, kind of an ELISA system, which is supposed to be better. But if you actually look at the studies that came out on it, they're pretty much the same. I don't really see that there is a grand benefit. The ELISA test, generally, if you look at this 2-tiered testing, it's going to miss anywhere. I mean, it depends on the labs you're using, but you can miss probably around 40 to 45, even up to 50% of the people. Now, how do I make the diagnosis then? So I do a Lyme panel approach, and I have this, by the way, all these tests are in my book. So there are what you call indirect tests, which are antibody tests, and then you have your direct tests. The direct tests would be your cultures, your PCR, your RNA called FISH. And the antibody tests are not just ELISAs. So the C6 ELISA is an antibody test that doesn't check for just one strain, but checks for European strains, Borrelia avzeli and Borrelia garini. Now, recently, we have discovered that these European strains have made it themselves in the United States. They've now established themselves, and I don't think most people know this. So these cause other rashes. The Borrelia avzeli, instead of causing a bullseye rash, it causes a violaceous skin rash, generally of your hands and feet. Borrelia garini is causing neuroborreliosis, neurological problems. So the C6 ELISA will pick up these other strains. But there's also new Western blots. The standard Western blot from Quest or LabCorp checks one strain. Well, there are multiple strains of Lyme. You can't expect one strain's going to pick it up. So IGeneX used to do in California 2 strains. Now they have an immunoblot that checks 7 to 8 strains. So it's not just checking Borrelia burgdorferi, but it's also checking the European strains, and it's checking a broader range of Borrelia. So when you do an immunoblot, IgM and IgG, you will see bands show up, and I call it Lyme bingo, that if you have any one of these bands show up on an immunoblot, bingo, you've been exposed to Lyme. So what are these numbers you need to like memorize? 23, that's the outer surface protein C. 31, that's the outer surface protein A. 34 is the outer surface protein B. 39, and then the 83/93. If you are someone who says, I have good and bad days, my symptoms are coming and going, I'm tired, I have headaches, I have memory problems, I have migratory joint pain, I'm sweating at night, I have mood swings, I can't fall asleep, I keep waking up in the middle of the night, I have chest pain, shortness of breath, these are the classic symptoms. Well, if you even have one of those numbers on an immunoblot, 23, 31, 34, 39, 83, 93, you've been exposed to a Borrelia species. There's no other way you can get these on an immunoblot. So although the 2-tiered testing is not significantly improved with an ELISA and a Western blot, if you use an IFA immunofluorescent antibody, if you use a C6 ELISA, if you use an immunoblot instead of a Western blot, if you do the 2-tiered EIA, what's going to happen with PCR testing, with DNA testing? Eventually, you're going to pick it up, but it has to be a panel approach that you can't rely on one set of testing. And what's a really important point here is a lot of people will get IgM antibodies that are positive, and they bring them to the doctors. Now, you learn in medical school, and probably the public knows this, IgM is supposed to be early onset disease. IgG antibodies are made later. The problem with Lyme is the IgM antibodies are seen in both early and late. And the reason is when Borrelia gets into your body and it invades the lymph nodes, and they found this first in mice with Nicole Baumgart's studies in California, and we published it in the Precision Medicine studies. We found that 45% of our patients were CDC positive for Lyme, but by IgM. And these were chronic Lyme patients, not patients with early disease. The immune system was knocked out with chronic Lyme. 20% of the people were having problems with low IgG antibodies. 7% had chronic variable immune deficiency. They were really deficient, couldn't even fight the infection. And 85% had subclass deficiencies, which were classic for Borrelia. So your immune system is affected and you may not make antibodies. And it's really necessary to understand that when you're not getting back positive tests.
Are there asymptomatic people? Are there people out there who have been bitten by the deer tick and just never developed any symptoms at all of Lyme disease?
There probably are some. I mean, there may be some people that get a small load of organisms. They may just get a couple of them and their immune system is able to fight it off. But for the vast majority of people, this is a really pathogenic bacteria. I mean, having been in medicine now for almost 35 years, I can tell you this disease is about as dangerous and as wily as it gets because it changes forms. It knows how to avoid the immune system. And that's not even mentioning the political aspects of this disease that's been going on for 40 years. And by the way, I should say this just so everyone knows, because I work for the government for HHS. The opinions I'm giving you today do not represent the opinions of HHS, Foreign Disease Working Group, or the U.S. government. The lawyers have always told me when I give these interviews, these are my opinions. They do not reflect HHS.
Right. Well, the reason I asked that is one of the things that we've learned from this COVID experiment is the sheer number of people who have been exposed to the virus but have been asymptomatic, which has led me to say on the show numerous times, I'll bet you if 1 year we started randomly testing hundreds of thousands of people a day for the seasonal flu, we'd find out a lot more people get it than actually display symptoms and go to the hospital, which makes you start to think, wow, we have a real opportunity here with random testing. We could take a disease, maybe not Lyme disease, but a disease. And if we started testing people randomly and we found out that there's this whole cohort of people who've exposed to this disease, maybe their body developed antibodies to it, they never developed any symptoms, that would actually help us understand maybe a path to better therapies. And the reason I asked, then I'm sorry, please.
So right now, and I discussed this on the last show with you, we are still having tremendous success. I have 2 published papers on COVID-19, and we use 3 natural supplements to block a switch inside the nucleus called NF-kappa B that shuts down inflammation. And the reason I knew to do it is because when I looked at the inflammation from COVID, it was exactly the same inflammatory molecules you see with Lyme. These 3 supplements are N-acetylcysteine, alpha-lipoic acid, and glutathione. And to give you an example, there was a doctor on the front lines in New York City. He had an oxygen saturation in the 70s. He was on oxygen and had a low oxygen sat. COVID pneumonia, he sent me on a text. He sent me his x-rays and said, I am sick as a dog and I can't go back to work. And I said, well, here's the protocol we're using. We're using 2,000 milligrams of glutathione 2 to 3 times per day. If you're sick with COVID, we double the NAC to 1,200 twice a day. Vitamin C, we double it to 2,000 3 times per day. And we're using drugs like ivermectin to kill the virus. Well, lo and behold, 10 days later, I get a text from him. He's smiling. He's without oxygen. He gets engaged and he says, guess what? I'm back to work. I feel great. All my symptoms went away. And we are getting emails in our medical office from people who are not even patients in my practice, who are telling me that they tried this protocol and it's working. The problem I face is I've sent these articles to all of my contacts at the federal and the state level, and I've not gotten any traction yet to do the studies to prove it works. But here, they're all searching. They're waiting for vaccines. They're looking at remdesivir, which only lowers the viral load and out of the hospital in 4 days. They're looking at monoclonal antibodies. I got a simple solution, which, of course, I need a randomized controlled study to prove it. But every person so far who's done this, it's worked for. And guess what? NAC and glutathione have antiviral effects. They've been published in the literature for hepatitis, for HIV, for herpes viruses. So I'm pretty confident that what we've discovered would actually work if I could only get someone to look at nutraceuticals instead of pharmaceuticals. We'd actually have a solution for this.
That doesn't make any money. Everybody is, it's almost like, and saying this, people go, oh, Carl, you're getting political, but it's just a fact. It's almost like anything that potentially could save you is being put on the back burners because we need a vaccine. We need a vaccine. And we know that vaccines don't work exclusively anyway. Real quick, the book is called How Can I Get Better? It's an action plan for treating resistant Lyme and chronic disease. You can get it at Amazon.com. You can get it at the website cangetbetter.com. I got a couple more questions I want to wrap up the interview with, because maybe I've got it wrong, but it seems to me that women tend to get Lyme more frequently than men. And based on that, is that a true statement before we go into the break?
It is.
Okay.
We definitely see more women in our practice than men who have it. It's tough to know if guys are just sucking it up and living with it, with what the IDSA would call the aches and pains of daily living. I can't tell you if it's that. But, part of the problem, you were talking about pool testing before and checking people, and I want to just come back to it for a second. Lyme is the great imitator. We have at this point, 5% of the US population has chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. Now, the symptoms are exactly the same as Lyme. 23 million Americans have an autoimmune disease in the United States. Lyme causes autoimmune reactions just like environmental toxins, like mercury and BPA and other things can stimulate it. And we have 46.5 million Americans that have preclinical dementia, looking like they're going to go on to Alzheimer's. And they found spirochetes from Lyme under biofilms in Alzheimer's brains, apart from pesticides. And this is all published in JAMA and other places. So my concern is, when we're talking about 300,000, 400, 500, 600,000 people a year getting Lyme or tick-borne in the United States, we really don't know the true incidence because you've got all these other diseases that are mimicking Lyme. For all I know, we could be dealing, and I have a feeling, by the way, this is true, that a third or 50% of the US population may have already been affected by this because it's been around for 40 years and nobody's got adequate testing to tell.
And another reason why we need random testing for this. That's where I was going with this. Like, I would love to be able to say, let's do random testing for this. Let's see what the population has been exposed to. All right, let's take a break. I have a really interesting question about estrogen when we come back. Stay tuned. Over 11 million people in the U.S. have some form of retinal damage, also known as macular degeneration. This is expected to double to nearly 22 million by 2050. Artificial blue light, age, type 2 diabetes are all contributors. Doctors say there's no cure. ARMED is changing that opinion. In one clinical trial, 93% of patients had arrested or improved their condition. 54% reported lessening of glare, reduced dryness, and improved clarity and comfort. And 0% felt worse during treatment and no side effects. Take control of your macular degeneration or keep it from ever occurring. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com and get armed today.
Quest Nutrition makes bars, cookies, chips, and pizzas out of complete dairy-based proteins. Our products minimize net carbs and sugar without sacrificing taste. Each delicious chocolate-flavored chip, cookie chunk, and crunchy crumble is custom made to maintain Quest macros. It's time to enjoy foods that work for you, not against you. It's time to enjoy your Quest.
Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier, and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis, you won't feel as good as you could. Studies have shown the power of infrared sauna. Infrared penetrates 1 to 2 inches into the body. It helps those with back pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, and anxiety. Patients get relief from infrared sauna. The Good Health Sauna has been shown to be an exercise mimetic, conveying many of the same benefits as cardio. There are a lot of reasons people buy a Good Health Sauna, but the bottom line is you will be a much happier, healthier person by using the Good Health Sauna every day. You'll crave it, you'll love it, and it will be the best purchase you have ever made. Good Health Saunas provide unmatched customer service, and the best financing makes owning one easy and will fit any budget. Go to goodhealthsauna.com/superhumanradio to learn more and save 25% off. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free bottle of Ranch-tastic seasoning with every order. Free shipping on orders of $99 or more. Get yours today at selectsavorysnacks.com/SHR. If there is one mineral you should be worried about not getting enough of, it's magnesium. Magnesium is the body's master mineral, powering over 300 critical reactions, including detoxification, fat metabolism, energy, and even digestion is influenced by the presence of magnesium. That's why I'm so excited to tell you about a new magnesium product I've been taking now called Magnesium Breakthrough. It's the ultimate magnesium supplement, easily the best I've ever seen or experienced. With all 7 forms of magnesium, I was able to arrange an amazing deal for my audience, and I guarantee it's the best deal available on this product. Seriously, with volume discounts combined with our custom 10% coupon code SHR10, you can save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. And I promise that this deal is only available on this specific website, magbreakthrough.com/SHR. You won't find that deal on Amazon or even on the company's own website. Go to magbreakthrough.com/SHR and use code SHR10 to save up to 40% off select packages of Magnesium Breakthrough. Chronic stress leaves us tired, distracted, and physically vulnerable. Apollo Neuro is here to help you take control. Apollo Neuro is a new wearable that trains your nervous system to be more resilient to stress. Apollo's gentle vibrations use your sense of touch to help you recover from stress, going from fight or flight to rest and digest so you can relax, get to sleep, focus, and stay healthy. Developed by physicians and neuroscientists, Apollo Neuro has been tested in multiple clinical trials and is proven to improve heart rate variability, the key biometric of stress. Special offer for friends of Superhuman Radio. Try Apollo Neuro today and get 15% off your purchase at apolloneuro.com/superhuman. That's APOLLONEURO.com/superhuman.
This is the Superhuman Channel. Evolution just got kicked up a notch.
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Richard Horowitz about Lyme disease, something that he has spent his life working in and trying to help people who suffer from it. It's a horrible, horrible disease. I have a cousin whose life has been derailed by it completely. You can't live a full and fulfilling and happy life if you're plagued by Lyme disease. So women tend to be higher targets for Lyme disease. Is there an estrogen component? We know that we know that sex hormones have an effect on microbiome diversity. Is there an estrogen component to this at all?
Absolutely. In fact, they've shown estrogen also plays a role in the autoimmune manifestations. So for example, there are certain like autoimmune eye conditions, iridocyclitis, They can take down prolactin levels, one of the female hormones. They get better. So yes, there is an estrogen component, and women will tell you right before, during, and after their period, when the estrogen levels drop, that's when the Lyme symptoms come out. So if, for example, you've managed to knock down the load of the bacteria in the body in a woman, and she says, hey, I'm good 27 days out of the month, but right before, during, or after my cycle, I'm getting symptoms back of fatigue and aches and headaches. That means you've knocked most of it out. But when the estrogen drops, that's when the bugs come out.
That's interesting. So is it safe to say that if a woman seems to develop these symptoms as she goes through menopause, that maybe hormone sensible, bioidentical HRT might be a good adjunct to a therapy?
I mean, we don't do it specifically for Lyme, but I mean, women who've done bioidentical hormone therapy have told us they feel better. What makes it very confusing in women when they go through menopause is they start getting hot flashes. And since at least 80% of my practice has Babesia, this tick-borne malarial parasite, Babesia causes day sweats, night sweats, chills, flushing, right? Including cough and air hunger. So it could look like menopause. And then sometimes you're not sure what's hormonal or what's Babesia. So it gets a little tricky when women go into menopause and they have this particular parasite.
Let me go back and just put the website and talk about the book again. The book is called How Can I Get Better? It's an action plan for treating resistant Lyme and chronic disease. You can get it at Amazon.com, where finer books are sold. Also, you can go to Dr. Horowitz's webpage, cangetbetter.com. There is really no one who has done in the space of Lyme disease what Dr. Richard Horowitz has done. Like I said, people line up for months just to see him because he actually helps people get better. And the book tells everything you need. Buy it for your physician. Buy 2 copies. Buy one for you and buy one to give to your doctor who's treating you. Because really, this is a specialty that has been cultivated organically in Dr. Horowitz's practice. It's not something that he learned in university, and it's something that has been a trial and error, and reading research and doing studies and publishing papers and learning how to test. And you can bring your own physician up to speed very, very quickly. And I'll tell you something else. If you have fibromyalgia, there's a lot of things in this book that can help you deal with your existing symptoms as well. Because as you said earlier, these 2 diseases look very, very similar. These women suffer from a lot of the same issues. And so clearly, and I'm almost, quick question. Did we have Lyme disease before widespread vaccination?
Oh, absolutely. Lyme disease has been around for a long time. They found Lyme disease in Otzi, the Neanderthal man who was in Tiroli 5,000 years ago. They find Babesia parasites in amber, in the red cells, 1 million years ago. These bacteria and parasites have been around for a long time.
The only reason I asked that is I had an interesting physician on the show probably a decade ago who talked about not that vaccines are bad, but the way they make vaccines today cause whole scale activation of the immune system that is broader than just what they want the immune system to learn, and that it could actually cause overactive immune systems later on in life, because it's like you're waking up the army and they've got no one to fight. And so, and I just thought, like, gee, I wonder if the more vaccines you get, the more likely you are to have an immune system that's going to go awry when something like Lyme disease is introduced. That's all.
My patients definitely have problems with vaccines. I mean, there's not even a doubt that they're more sensitive. And that's because when they give the adjuvants in the vaccines, I mean, I've had kids in college, Ivy League college like Harvard, had to drop out because like one of them got an HPV vaccine and basically got so sick from it, he can go back to school for a year. I'm not saying this is common, but have I seen it? I absolutely have seen it. And it's a problem in Lyme patients. And by the way, the Lyme patients do not respond to vaccines as well. They've shown that when you have Lyme and you have Ehrlichia anaplasma specifically, it helps suppress the immune response. You don't get the same type of antibody response to the vaccine. So what's going to need to be shown with COVID is we've got a lot of Lyme patients in the United States. When they get the COVID vaccine, the question will be, will they get as robust an antibody response as the general public? I mean, that we already know with the flu vaccine, that's not the case. So it's something that's going to have to be examined.
Dr. Horowitz, thank you so much for coming on today. This particular show, I think, is going to help a lot of people and access to the book. And thank you for everything that you've done so far in this category.
My pleasure. And just one last word, there's another persister drug apart from Dapsone called Disulfurium. We probably have about 150 people on the drug. Dr. Kenneth Liebner published on it last year. It's also a drug that looks like it has great potential. So I just wanted to finish with the words of hope for people, that for those people that have not tried these newer persister protocols, Disulfurium, Dapsone, although they have side effects, they definitely do a good job for some resistant patients, and you should have hope because we are making progress.
Thank you very much, Dr. Horowitz. We'll talk again soon, okay?
My pleasure, Carl.
Take care. We're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I've offered to answer questions. I get a lot of emails day in and day out about things I say on the show. And when we come back, I've got a Q&A. I've got a bunch of questions listed. Plus, if you're watching live and you want to ask me a question, nothing is off topic. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio. Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. There's no denying that a low-carb, low-sugar keto lifestyle has been shown to reverse chronic inflammation and normalize insulin sensitivity. But we all want a sweet snack from time to time. Well, no matter what you're looking for, you'll find it at Perfect Keto. Bars, cookies, exogenous ketones, keto-friendly performance enhancers, it's all in one place. I love their chocolate quad ketone salts that balance all 4 minerals. And try their keto bars for unique taste satisfaction, all the while knowing you're staying in your keto lifestyle lane. Go to perfectketo.com/superhuman to save 20% off your purchase today. I love beef. And if you love beef, listen up. I've discovered the best tasting beef in the world, and that's not an exaggeration, at Piedmontese.com. The Piedmontese breed is famous from Italy for being lean and unbelievably tender with half the fat and calories of traditional beef. Even typically tough cuts are tender when it comes from the Piedmontese cows. And for the first time ever, Piedmontese cows are being raised here in the USA. Get 2 free 10-ounce New York strips when you purchase $50 or more at Piedmontese.com with code SHR. Go to PIEDMONTESE.com and use code SHR today. You will never eat any other type of beef ever again.
Planet Earth CBD offers a fast-acting transdermal patch that targets your aches and pains for the relief you need. Not only is the patch uniquely patented, but it is widely believed to provide larger quantities of available cannabinoids to the source of pain than other brands' subpar products. Effective for 24 to 48 hours, experience the benefits of Planet Earth's high-quality transdermal patch. Manufactured by Next Generation Technology in an FDA-registered facility, this pressure-sensitive adhesive delivers rich hemp extract directly through the skin. Be it a neck ache or a headache, you can count on CBD to take off the edge. Go to planetearthcbd.com today to learn more.
Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the healthier alternative to sugar-laden beef jerky. Their sugar-free biltong is seasoned and then air-dried for up to 2 weeks, providing you with one of the most tender and flavorful meat snacks that you've ever had. They also use a fattier cut of beef, which adds to the tenderness and gives their biltong even better flavor. Select Savory Snacks Original Biltong is the perfect snack or travel companion for your busy life. Get a free bottle of Ranch-tastic seasoning with every order. Free shipping on orders of $99 or more. Get yours today at selectsavorysnacks.com/SHR. Over 11 million people in the U.S. have some form of retinal damage, also known as macular degeneration. This is expected to double to nearly 22 million by 2050. Artificial blue light, age, type 2 diabetes are all contributors. Doctors say there's no cure. ARMED is changing that opinion. In one clinical trial, 93% of patients had arrested or improved their condition. 54% reported lessening of glare, reduced dryness, and improved clarity and comfort. And 0% felt worse during treatment and no side effects. Take control of your macular degeneration or keep it from ever occurring. Go to wisechoicemedicine.com and get armed today.
Move over, superheroes. This is the Superhuman Channel.
Welcome back. Okay, so I promised to do a Q&A today, and that's what I'm doing. And man, did we get a bunch of questions. We got more than I have here, but these were the ones I had time to bring up. The first one comes from Stephen Kelly. He says, can BFR be used during physical therapy, like during exercise for repairing tendons? And the answer is abso-effing-lutely. In fact, this is what it was created for. The Japanese scientists that created Katsu back in 2006, I think it was, because that's when we did the first show about it. They were looking for ways to help people maintain muscle mass during injured states without loading the muscle. This is exactly what you need for tendons. This is exactly what you need for torn tendons or surgically recently repaired tendons, like my tricep when I tore it and they had to surgically put it back on. Because the BFR, blood flow restriction, which was originally called Katsu in Japanese, K-A-I or K-I-A-T-S-U. You can look at the studies are in PubMed and wherever you search for your studies. This is what they did. They took people that were injured in physical therapy, and instead of having them do the rudimentary walking and bending and flexing and all that sort of stuff, they took blood pressure cuffs and they pumped them up to like 180 millimeters of mercury on the injured leg. They had them do things like leg extensions and leg curls and light work like that with little to no weight. And what they found out was that their muscles grew. They didn't just stay and not shrink. They actually got bigger. And they were like, oh my God, this is like anabolic, excuse me, I'm burping here. So this is the best thing to rehab if you have an injury and you don't want to lose muscle or strength. This is the way to do it, really. No joke. Let's see here. So yes, Andrew Scarborough says, what's your opinion of the Oxford COVID-19 vaccine trial, which has reported successful outcomes in a very short period of time? And he did post a link to the article. I read about this the other day briefly. And I think for people, first of all, I'm glad England did it, not us. I really am. Because if somebody here would have done it, there would have been a political storm. You know, whose team were they on? And depending on whose team they were on, should we take it seriously or not? So I'm actually glad that this came out of England. I think GlaxoSmithKline is involved with it, or one of the large pharmaceutical companies that's based here in the United States, that's also based there. But I don't know, Andrew, and I'll tell you why. I'm not waiting for a vaccine. I've never been waiting for a vaccine. I've never thought about a vaccine, and I will never get a vaccine. I just won't. There are no reasons to get a vaccine to deal with something that I can fix myself if I get sick. If I got sick tomorrow, I take Z-Pak, take our Ala. I've got plenty of glutathione sitting over here from Live On Labs. I've got plenty of vitamin C from Live On Labs. I would just treat it myself. I would definitely not get a vaccine. To me, getting a vaccine is like you break your leg. They set it with the cast and you let it heal and the cast comes off. That's the right way to treat with a broken leg. The wrong way to treat a broken leg is you break your leg and instead of putting a cast on the outside, they want to put a rod and screw it into the bones. And then you have to go back for another surgery later on to have the rod removed. And you don't know if you're going to get an infection. And no, you don't need to do that. Just put a cast on the outside. I'm not waiting for a vaccine. I'm really not interested in the outcome of their vaccine research. That's not my thing. Now, there are people out there who really do want a vaccine so that they can have a false sense of protection, because it is a false sense of protection. People get the flu vaccine every year and they get the flu. I mean, people get all sorts of vaccines and still get sick. What makes you think that you won't get a COVID-19 vaccine and not still get COVID-19? The only way you don't get COVID-19 again is the way we did it with the Spanish flu. You let it run through the population. We build herd immunity. It goes away. We never needed a vaccine. We lost 750,000 people in 1919, 1918 over the course of almost 2 years. 3 outbreaks. We had the initial outbreak and then a second wave and a third wave. 685,000 people in the United States died. We never came up with a vaccine for it, and it's gone. And that's really the way it should be handled. So I don't know, but I am glad that the UK came up with it. I really am. Because had someone in the United States come up with it, then God forbid Trump said something good about it, or God forbid Nancy Pelosi said something good about it, then you got people like that. That's the problem. The politicization of medicine is just horrible. It's horrible. Politicians, in order for politicians to survive, they must divide the population into teams. And they use things that people care about to do so. And this is sad because we lose when politicians do that. Because you have people that are choosing outcomes based on their political party telling them as opposed to what really will work for them. So that's why I'm glad it happened in Oxford over at the UK and not here. Eric Swanee says, ever thought about developing your own line of gym equipment? The market is insane right now. No, I know you're right. I mean, it's going to be insane for a long time. There's a lot of people who will not go to the gym anymore, not because of COVID. You know, I stopped coloring my hair, and now Elisa cuts it with a clipper. I used to pay $125 every 5 weeks to have my hair cut and colored. Because of the shutdown, COVID-19 and all that sort of stuff, I stopped coloring my hair. It got gray, and it really wasn't so bad. And everybody's going, gee, your hair looks good gray, and especially with the tan, you look so good. And I thought, you know, like the worst has happened. Why do I even need to color my hair anymore? So I think a lot of people stopped going to the gym, invested in some home gym equipment, or walking around their neighborhoods or sprinting the hills in their neighborhoods or training in the backyard. And I don't think they'll ever go back to the gym. I really don't. Now, some of us will. I love the gym. I like the ritual. I get in the car and I go to the gym. Right now, I'm going to the gym after work. So I'm going to go after today's show. After I get all my duties done, I go to the gym and train. I'm training legs today. I'm digging training in the afternoon. I never did that before. I've always trained in the morning. And I love going to the gym. I'm motivated. I train harder. Maybe because I'm a show off. Maybe because I want someone to pay attention to me. I don't know. You know, it's possible. But I think there are a lot of people who are falling in love with training at home, the simplicity of it, not having to go to get caught in traffic and all the other stuff that they hate about the gym. And I think that those people will start training at home all the time. And I think this market will not go away. We've always had a home gym, Elisa and I. We have a sauna. We have a couple pieces of cardio equipment. We have all sorts of power block dumbbells, power block kettlebells, bands. We have a bench. Excuse me. I have an inversion table that I love to stretch my spine with. And I'd like more room. The next house we go to will have at least 3 times to 4 times the size of this room, so we can have maybe a Smith machine, so we could do squats and stuff like that at home. But I think I'll always go to the gym. I don't know. It's community. I go to the gym for the same reason people go to church. People say they go to church because they love the community of it, to be around friends and talk and you know, all that sort of stuff. And I'm kind of the same way. I like going there. I like running into people that I've known for so long. I just enjoy the environment. But yeah, I mean, and plus I've got so many projects I'm working on right now. I couldn't imagine taking on another project, trying to come up with a piece of gym equipment. But you need to do it, Eric. You need to come up with something. Come on, man. Just look at what people need at home to train, to get a real good training session in, and come up with something. I'll promote it on the show. How's that? The next question comes from my sister, Carmela Cierzo, who lives in Canada. What do you think the future holds for the gym business? Like I just said, it's more of a addendum to what we were just talking about. I think gyms will always be out there. And especially with the $9 a month gym memberships, they're always going to be out there. There's a large percentage of people who have gym memberships because of what it means to have a gym membership. A lot of them are out of shape, but they get a gym membership and it's $9 a month, and they're going to do it someday, just not today. Maybe tomorrow. Tomorrow comes, well, no, not today. Maybe tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes. Maybe not today, and then tomorrow, and they just keep pushing it off. But having a gym membership kind of makes them feel like they've got one foot in the right direction. So I think gyms will always be around. And I don't think COVID is going to make them go away. I definitely don't think I don't think gyms are a major distribution center for COVID at all. I really don't. You know, that like our governor is saying, well, if the infection rate doesn't, even though the death rate has dropped here in Kentucky, if the infection rate doesn't drop, the next thing we're going to do is close gyms. It's like, how about trying to figure out, like, you got these tracers now, you have these apps. How about trying to figure out how many people think they actually caught COVID at the gym before you close the gym? This is what beguiles me about politicians. I'm sorry to say this, but it's on both sides. Republican, Democrat, whatever group you are with. Politicians today lack any real intelligence. What they have is crowd appeal. People look at a guy and go, man, I'd like to have a beer with him. I think I'll vote for him. That's a stupid reason to vote for somebody. Like, when you look at a politician, ask yourself, would I let him babysit my children? Would I give him my checkbook and my bank accounts? Would I give him my credit cards? Would I let him live in my house? Because if you can't say affirmatively, yes, I would give this guy my kids' lives, my wife's life, I'd let him manage my bank accounts and everything, without complete confidence that he wouldn't bankrupt you, kill your children, rape your wife, anything else, then you shouldn't vote for him, because he's running a business. It's called your city. It's called your city. But too many people vote for people because they, oh, he seems so nice. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with him. Then have a cup of coffee with him, but don't vote for him. We have to stop that. We really do. Lynn Wright says, have you questioned the theory of this pandemic, one virus, one disease? No, I haven't. I really haven't. I think that this virus is real. I think it was manufactured in China. I think the Chinese knew they were letting it loose. I think these things. I don't talk about it often, but since you've asked, I think China had a mission to completely stop our country from dominating them, because we just started to dominate them. We just started to dominate them. We were putting the screws to them. And people, whenever I say this to people in confidence, they say, well, yeah, but why would they kill the Italians? And well, why wouldn't they? They killed their own people. The Chinese have killed 40,000 of their own people for certain missions that they were on. So why would they care about killing the Italians and the Scandinavians and every other population? In fact, it just makes it look like they weren't trying to get to us. But I believe that this virus is real. I'm not a flat earther. I believe that there are people dying from this virus. I know someone who just died from it. I believe that it was created in a lab. And, you know, and more politicians should be pissed off about that. Like, why aren't any of our politicians talking about China making this right? They made it. They created it. There's a group of Chinese scientists that published a paper just a month and a half after the virus was widespread. And they showed that it was made in that lab in Wuhan, and it was released from that lab in Wuhan. And now we just have to debate whether it was an accident or on purpose. But it doesn't matter. In this country here, if I shoot you with a gun and I meant to do it, it's premeditated. If I didn't mean to do it, it's manslaughter. But I still killed you, and it's still punishable. It's still punishable. So I think that we really need to look at what we need to do to square things up with China. But yeah, and I really do think it's one virus, one disease, and people are just profiting from it or taking advantage of it for their own personal gain, whatever that may be. Cal Knernshield says, why are people stupid? Well, it's funny. I wasn't going to put this up because I know it's kind of rhetorical, Carol, but the reality is people are only stupid when they don't agree with us, right? So is it really stupidity? It's really a difference of opinion. In this world today, if you don't agree with me, you're stupid. If I don't agree with you, I'm stupid. Now, there is a lack of critical thinking and deductive reasoning in this population, and it will be the end of humanity someday. We will die because people make decisions based on feelings instead of facts. They make decisions based on supporting the team and towing the line versus what's good for them and the population. We have a lot of people in population today that do things that are not in their own best interest. It's like, I've used this analogy before in conversations. It's like if you and I are on a cruise ship and we were sitting at dinner the other night and the captain just completely disrespected us. So we sit down, we go, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to sink this effing ship tonight. When everybody's asleep, we're going to sink it. We're going to fix that captain. We're going to sink the ship. But wait a minute, we're on the ship too. We're going to die too. Yeah, who cares? We're going to sink the ship anyway. That's an illustration of people who do things that are not in their own best interest. We have people that actually think that way. I know that sounds like a far stretch, but it's not. We have people that do stupid stuff just so their peers will rally them. Oh, yeah, you're the best. But meanwhile, they're dying and their friends are dying too at the same time. And that's really the problem. It's not so much that people are stupid as much as they lack critical thinking and deductive reasoning, and they do things viscerally, how it feels. It'll just feel so good to do this. I'll be honored by my friends. Yeah, but you're going to die. Look at suicide bombers. Every suicide bomber, I'll bet money. I'll bet you anything. Like when they get tapped on the shoulder and they're told, okay, it's your turn. You're going to put the vest on tonight. You're going to walk into this crowd. They don't go in there going, oh, this is so great. I can't wait to blow myself up. I'm going to go to heaven. They start having doubts. They think, oh my God, like I'm going to die. I don't want to die. It's ingrained in us on a cellular level to stay alive. So you have to really have a mental illness if you can disconnect that evolutionary drive to stay alive and say, no, it's more important that I blow myself up and all these people because of the mission. So that's the problem today. Lack of critical thinking and a lack of deductive reasoning. We're going to answer one more question. We're going to take a break after that. Oscar J. Oscar, what is the most optimal body fat percentage for natural testosterone production? Not a range, 8 to 20%, but an optimum. That can't be answered. That's a loaded question. It's different for everybody. There are people that can be at 2% body fat and they're fine. And then there's other people, especially women, when they get down in those low body fat ranges, they stop producing any hormones. I think 10% body fat happens to be an ideal place for people who are athletic, but also want to be strong enough to fight off a disease and a long hospital stay. I think when you start getting under 10% body fat, especially with women, you start to see amenorrhea. You start to see they lose their period. I think fat intake in the diet is more important, quite frankly. I think you could be at an ultra low body fat level, but if you're eating enough fat every day, you'll still produce testosterone. I feel strongly about that. There is a point where that ends, but to me, I think 10% is the magic number. I really, really do. We're going to take our last commercial break. I've got like 5 more questions to answer. I'll do my best to answer them quickly. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Unlock your potential with the best cognitive enhancement and anti-aging supplements on the market. PureNootropics.net goes the extra mile for the highest quality ingredients, third-party tested to make sure you only receive the best your money can buy. There's no better choice with their money-back guarantee and free shipping. Try their best-selling DHM. Dihydromyricetin prevents hangovers and helps deliver detox after a night of drinking. Get your DHM and other nootropics and longevity supplements from PureNootropics.net, the purest supplement supplements around.
Everybody wants to feel better, be healthier and happier. If you don't sweat profusely on a regular basis, you won't feel as good as you could. Studies have shown the power of infrared sauna. Infrared penetrates 1 to 2 inches into the body. It helps those with back pain, fibromyalgia, arthritis, depression, and anxiety. Patients get relief from infrared sauna. The Good Health Sauna has been shown to be an exercise mimetic, conveying many of the same benefits as cardio. There are a lot of reasons people buy a Good Health Sauna, but the bottom line is you will be a much happier, healthier person by using the Good Health Sauna every day. You'll crave it, you'll love it, and it will be the best purchase you have ever made. Good Health Saunas provide commercial-grade saunas for in-home and commercial use, backed by the best lifetime warranty in the industry. Unmatched customer service and the best financing makes owning one easy and will fit any budget. Go to goodhealthsauna.com/superhumanradio to learn more and save 25% off. You've heard me talk about the chill pill on the show and how effective it is at helping people who suffer from social anxiety, or sometimes when you just want to take the edge off to a long, stressful day. Well, listen to this story from Dylan Goutreau.
Definitely takes anxiety away, which I have a long history of having. Started out at 2 milligrams a day of Xanax. That was at 8 years old. And so I stopped using benzos 3 years ago. Extremely difficult. Yeah, so I spent about 3 years trying to find anything and everything I could that would be healthy for me to help with anxiety. Because I'm talking, full out panic attack. The chill pill was the first thing that I found that actually in the middle of a panic attack I can take, and it definitely subsides.
Go to drseeds.com. That's DRSEEDS.com. Use coupon code SHR and save 20% off your first bottle of the chill pill. Check it out. I promise this is one supplement that delivers.
New Mass Pro Synthogen X2 just upped its own legendary game. To distance itself even further from the rest of the pack, Synthogen X2 now has double the key active ingredients. If you've ever wondered what steroid-like recovery feels like, Synthogen X2 delivers. See why others compare it favorably to powerful bodybuilding drugs at synthogen.com. Mass Pro Synthogen. When you train with it, you'll gain with it.
Do you remember those delicious toaster pastries you had when you were a kid? You know, the rectangular sugar-filled snacks? Well, guess what? Legendary Foods has just made low-carb toaster pastry. This is the first of its kind, and honestly, these things are amazing. They have 3 to 4 net carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 9 grams of protein. You can eat them right out of the wrapper or lightly toast them. The only question is, which flavor, strawberry or brown sugar cinnamon? They're available at eatlegendary.com and Amazon. Whether your goal is to build muscle or burn fat, you'll find everything you need at Redcon One. Need help getting a good night's sleep? Try Fade Out, or the most popular pre-workout supplement on the market today, Total War. Sign up for their new Transformation Challenge and win $10,000, or shop for apparel that people at the gym will know that you are serious about your training. Need a testosterone booster that works? Check out Boomstick. Whatever you need, you'll find the best quality supplements on the market at Redcon One. Go to redcon1.com. That's REDCON, the number 1.com, or go to superhumanradio.net and click the Redcon One banner ad today.
You're listening to the Superhuman Channel. We're ripped and we're ready.
Okay. The next question comes live from an audience member, Tommy D. He says, are there any new research chemicals that you know of that have been shown effectively for sleep? I try to go the natural route as much as possible, but my shift work makes it difficult not to resort to something like heavy hitters. I looked at possibly Edazolam, used sparingly. What are your thoughts? I actually think that the Phenibut is a better choice. I really do. Phenibut is natural. If you use it for sleep, it's not habit forming. Anthony Roberts and I had long discussions about this years ago. A lot of people talk about Phenibut being habit forming. That's only when you use it for social anxiety. If you're using it and then you're going out and hanging out. But even as little as 400 milligrams, 300 milligrams of Phenibut, 3 or 4 milligrams, even as much as 10 milligrams of melatonin is magic for sleep. But the problem is the FDA just made everybody take Phenibut out of their, one of the greatest sleep formulas used to be Fade Out by Redcon One. But then they had to change their formula because the FDA said, oh, you can't use phenibut anymore. And for me, it doesn't work anymore. It just doesn't. There was also a pharmacy that I met at the International Peptide Society that was making a product that had phenibut in it. And the FDA made them stop selling it. They were selling it through doctors. If you can get your hands on phenibut, I would say that's the best. And I've used it. It's better than benzodiazepines. He says, I use phenibut 2 times a week, 1,000 milligrams, very effective. Cut it back. That's a lot. That's a large dose. You'll get the same effect from 200 to 400 milligrams and add in just a little bit of melatonin. Cut it back. That's a pretty, that's a dose that makes me snore. And I only snore when I'm like knocked out, like Quaalude knocked out. So I think that's a high dose personally. So there you go. Yeah, I would go with phenibut. Absolutely. Okay, let's see who the next question is. Hold on. So this question comes from Weihong Hong. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Best time to do stretching, before, during, or after workouts? I say after, and here's why. There's a large debate on whether or not stretching before working out makes you weaker, makes you more prone to injury, blah, blah, blah. But what we learned from research, if building muscle is important to you, that stretching after a workout, and especially stretching under a load. So for instance, if you're training chest, you've done all your chest sets. Now, the finisher is you grab 200-pound dumbbells, you lay down on the bench, you let the weight sink, and you focus on breathing and allowing your pec muscles to stretch. Let the weight pull you apart, literally. Let that happen. Just let it. You'll see your muscles explode in a couple months. You'll see new growth in your muscles that you've never seen before. Because stretching post-workout, and especially stretching under a load, has been shown to increase androgen receptor biogenesis. And the more androgen receptors you have in the muscle tissue, the more muscle fibers you can activate, and the more the effects of anabolics are conveyed to the muscle. So I'm a huge fan of post-workout stretching. The other thing is, we all know that after you train, that's when you're the tightest. Your muscles are all tweaked because they're pumped, and that's the time to stretch. You're going to get the most out of a stretch then, because the muscles don't want to stretch. You got to be careful now. You don't do stupid stuff where you're going to tear a muscle. But you can even get into a push-up movement, get all the way down where your chest is touching the floor, and just let your body sink. Get between 2 benches and let your body sink and open your chest up. You can do that for your shoulders. Like after training shoulders, grab 2 heavy dumbbells and do farmer's walks. It's pulling the muscles out of the socket. It's pulling the sockets open. The muscles are trying to resist it. The muscles are stretching. Your traps are stretching. I have proud traps because of stretching from deadlifting. I'm pulling that bar and everything just wants to come apart and it's just holding itself together. So I'm a huge fan of post-workout stretching. Let's see, we have another question here, a live one. Let's see what it is. Okay, he's going to give it a shot. We also have a question. For some reason, it didn't show up, and I don't know why, but I'm going to read it from my phone. Bridget McArcher says, weird question, but what can the scent of someone's sweat tell you about their health? For example, a vinegary scent or more of a spice scent. It can tell you a lot, actually. So when I was eating way too much protein, after I would train, my shirts literally smelled like ammonia. And that's because I was eating way too much protein. I had to add glutamine and glycine supplementation and it went away. But I also know that people who suffer from neurological disorders, they have a certain scent to their body odor. It's a very rank, strong, when my sister developed Parkinson's disease, her body odor changed. I remember it. I think there's something to that. There's also something to it from mating. We know from evolution that women can literally smell what they need to create a healthy child in a man's scent, in his sweat, and when they kiss, she can taste it. Now, it's not like they know. It's not like they go, oh, yeah, that's the guy I want. They're just attracted. They're attracted. So we know that scent does have a role. And I definitely agree with you that when people get sick, their scent will change. Also, certain medications will make people, their sweat change as well. The next question comes from Bill War Room Taco. Bill Taco is the guy who's helping me with my diet right now so I can grow more muscle and get lean. What's your personal opinion of GW 501516? It's a SARM. It was created by GlaxoSmithKline, excuse me, along with another company. It was a joint venture, Ligand Pharmaceuticals or something like that. And it was originally developed to treat metabolic disorders. It was designed to help manage blood sugar, dyslipidemia, and things like that for people with type 2 diabetes. And it's a PPAR delta agonist. And all PPAR delta agonists have the ability to lower blood sugar, lower blood lipids. So it's also seen to be therapeutic. So here's something interesting that nobody will tell you about it. The molecule itself is considered a phthalate. While it seems to activate the retinoid X receptor, which is what vitamin A activates and has a role in anabolic effects, believe it or not, because it increases hyperplasia and satellite cell differentiation, all that sort of stuff. It actually blocks the androgen receptor. Phthalates are called anti-androgens. You'll find them in air fresheners. You'll find them in plastic. They're plasticizers. They make plastic flexible and stretching. They're like the gluten of plastics, actually. We did a show in 2006 on phthalates, anti-androgens, and how they're feminizing babies and young boys because they have a greater affinity to the androgen receptor than some sex steroids, and they block the activation of the androgen receptor by testosterone and DHT and DHEA and all those other androgens. And so they're horrible. Horrible, horrible, horrible. GW 501516 is actually technically a phthalate. And it was originally researched, as I said, for metabolic disorders, not for performance enhancement. And the reason that Glaxo dropped it is because it caused cancer in fairly low doses. I stopped right there. It's like, why would I even want to mess with this? I know that it's supposed to make people perform better, increased energy output, increased endurance, all that sort of stuff. We see a lot of professional athletes testing positive for it today. But professional athletes will do something that's going to kill them just to win a gold medal. They don't care. They can't see past that gold medal. Like if you tell them, oh, great, when you're 40 and 50, you're going to be so sick. They don't care. Will I get a gold medal now? Yeah. Okay. I'll do that then. I wouldn't use it. Technically, it's not a SARM. It's not a selective androgen receptor modulator. It's actually an androgen blocking agent. Technically. Look up phthalates. Go to PubMed and put the word phthalates, PHTH, LATES, and androgen and the word anti-androgen. You'll find studies on it. Phthalates are anti-androgens. They stop the effects of testosterone. They don't help it. We already have SARMs that we know about. So technically, Trenbolone is a SARM. It only activates certain portions of the androgen receptor, certain mosaics of the androgen receptor. That's what a SARM is. It doesn't activate the entire androgen receptor. The androgen receptor looks like an upside-down mushroom, and the androgen docks in it, and it then activates everything it touches. Trenbolone is a very powerful androgen, a selective androgen receptor modulator. So we already have drugs that will build crazy muscle and strength that are technically SARMs that nobody wants to call SARMs. Maybe we renamed Tren Nth after a SARM, T6065, and say, oh, there's a new injectable SARM. It's amazing. You know, it'll get you ripped and make you stronger and give you the night sweats and all that sort of stuff. And people will buy it. I'm not crazy about these new SARMs anyway. I just feel like testosterone, masteron, trenbolone. I mean, we have things that selectively activate androgen receptors. Well, testosterone activates the whole thing, but you know, masteron and I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Trenbolone is a couple others. They are already selective androgen receptor modulators. Why fool with this unknown stuff that clearly the pharmaceutical industry doesn't abandon anything. Basically, taking these products is like dumpster diving in big pharma. It's like these are the things they threw away. They don't. This is an industry that doesn't throw anything away. Like they invest money. It was in phase 1. It went into phase 2 trials, and the phase 2 trials is when they saw that as little as 2 milligrams a kilogram caused kidney tumors, liver tumors, and something else. I want to say it was in the spleen. Like, okay, so like big pharma is all about making billions of dollars. They threw this away. Bodybuilders and athletes found it. It's like, oh, we found gold. No, you found crap. You found something that they said was not good because it caused bad outcomes. And because it conveys a moderate performance enhancing effect, it's an ergogenic, you're willing to take it. I'm not. This is an interesting question. This one comes from Kirkland Morletti. He says, do you predict this compound, BAM15, will pan out to be a viable alternative to DNP? Devil's advocate, the short half-life has pros and cons. Okay. For those who don't know what DNP is a powerful mitochondrial uncoupler. It's actually an industrial solvent. Think about, I don't know, paint thinner. It's like, I'm sure paint thinner will make you lose weight, by the way, if you start drinking it. So DNP has killed people. It's caused them to completely overheat and die. And there's not, once you take too large of a dose, and we're talking about micrograms of the doses. Once you take too large of a dose, they can't save you. They can put you in ice bath. They can't save you. You cook yourself from the inside out. But as a mitochondrial uncoupler, it causes the mitochondria to have to work harder to do the same amount of work. So you literally sweat. You're walking up the stairs is difficult. And so you're burning more calories for things that you do on a day in and day out basis. And so BAM15 is supposed to be a less harmful mitochondrial uncoupler like DNP because it has a very short half-life. So if you take too large of a dose, it'll wear off before you actually die from it. Once again, kind of like the discussion I just had with Bill, we already have an amazing mitochondrial uncoupler that our body likes. It's called thyroid hormone. Why take any of these foreign chemicals that we don't even know what the horrible effects are? Just get some T3 from a Mexican pharmacy and start taking some T3 every single day and watch your body fat go away. Don't take too much because it'll eat up your muscles too, which I'm sure DNP will as well, and BAM15. But like, why fool around with chemicals? Oh, we found an alternative to DNP. I never use DNP. I use plenty of T3, Cytomel. I used to buy that stuff by the bottles from Mexico. Helped me shed a lot of body fat over the course of years. And my body likes thyroid hormone. I have a thyroid. I'm not fooling around with some sort of foreign chemical that was originally an industrial solvent, and somebody saw mice drinking it, and all of a sudden they lost a lot of fat, and they went, "Oh, this is great. Maybe we could use this too." No, I don't care about BAM15 either. I didn't care about DNP. I was never stupid enough to use it, and I use that word specifically. You're not a critical thinker if you're taking something like that just to lose body fat. You lack any real discipline, and you're trying to make up for it with a very, very dangerous chemical. Very dangerous chemical. So You want to lose some body fat, Kirk? Order some Cytomel from a Mexican pharmacy and start taking some micrograms extra a day. That's it. You'll lose it. Take your time. It all takes longer than you think it's going to, but that'll work. All right, that's it for today. Thank you for asking your questions, helping me fill this extra hour. And tomorrow we're going to tell you how to get a free bottle of Masszyme from Bioptimizers if you can tune in tomorrow. It looks like we have one more question or comment. Let's see what it is. Did I ever use GHB? No, I didn't. I interviewed Derek Anthony before he died, and I know a lot of people who took GHB, and they all ended up with what looked like multiple sclerosis. Now, it could be because the GHB was bootlegged. They made it in somebody's backyard or somebody's bathtub, and it had stuff in it that was poison. You used to be able to buy GHB over the counter under the name, I want to say Blue Rhino. GHB scares me a little bit. It does. I think that I think it has some really harmful side effects. I think it destroys people's livers, whether that's because of the adulteration when they make it. Yeah, I've never done it, and I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. I'd stay away from that too. Definitely Phenibut. It's safe. It's effective. And try tapering your doses down. Try 200 milligrams, 300. You don't want to be knocked out. You want to fall asleep gently and stay asleep. You can do that with 200 to 400 milligrams very, very easily. You don't need a gram. All right, that's it. See you tomorrow. Thanks for watching today and listening. Please share today's show because there's a lot of people out there with Lyme disease that will be helped by this show today. See you tomorrow.